Today I would like to explore with you how this quote here from Neville Goddard articulates the point precisely. He says, "What you now desire, you already have. You seek it only because you have already found it. You found it in the form of desire." To explore this with you today, I titled today's conversation mind map, "You can do nothing to be, as desire simply points to fulfillment." You can do nothing to be, as desire simply points to fulfillment. Also inspired by Mark 11:24, "Whatsoever things ye desire, pray as though ye have received it, and it will be yours." That is because you already are it. You already have it. Desire points to fulfillment. You are fulfilled. Another way of saying this is fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. So desire is the intention to be. Yet you are already that. If the individual thinks themselves to be separate from fulfillment, they experience desire to be fulfilled. So desire is a calling back to fulfillment. As you remain as you are, completely fulfilled, I am fulfilled. As mentioned, fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. If the person in mind thinks that there is separation between these, that generates suffering. So fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. As you remain as you are, completely fulfilled, everything happens to be added onto you. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things are added onto you naturally, in flow, without forcing, without wanting, without needing, without waiting. Everything happens naturally. If the individual remains as they are, or we can say it this way, if the I thoughts of separation from being are dissolved by not identifying with them, and you can do nothing to not identify with them. You can do nothing means not identify. It does not mean physically force yourself to do nothing. It means naturally body flows, naturally everything flows. Everything appears to be in harmony with you. You can do nothing means stop trying to control, stop trying to force. Everything happens naturally as you know that you are completely fulfilled. Because what you seek for, you already are. What you seek for, you already have. As he said, what you now desire, you already have. And you seek it only because you have already found it. You have found it in the form of desire. Thus, you can do nothing to be. You are already that, from which everything happens naturally, spontaneously for you. You are that pure awareness that transcends the thoughts of limitations. Thus, you are not the thought of limitation. You are not the thought of separation. You are not the thought of lack. And having no identity of limitation, you know yourself to be complete fulfillment. How do you know? Well, in the silence, certainly in the silence, at the end of all of Neville Goddard's lectures, he says, now let's go into the silence. Now let's go into the silence. That right there is everything. You know who you are in the silence. You feel fulfilled in the silence. Thoughts that arise from identification no longer appear unless you don't identify in the silence. You know who you are in the silence. You know that you are completely fulfilled in the silence. There's no wanting, needing, waiting, craving, or outward seeking for fulfillment, because you know that you are completely fulfilled in the silence. Being still in the silence, you also know, beyond doubt, there's no such thing as doubt in the silence, that fulfillment, God, the self, desire, and intention are one. So there's no such thing as lack of fulfillment in the silence. Now, can I remain as I am in the silence? Certainly I can. I remain as I am in the silence as I go about whatever. Whatever happens on the bridge of incidents, I remain as I am because I know who I am. I know who I am. I found who I am in the form of desire. To prove the point, when you know who you are in the silence, it is easy to imagine yourself to be who you once desired to be. You see yourself in your imagination already being who you desire to be. You see yourself in imagination having what you desire, and there's no resistance. By abiding in the silence, there is no resistance, from which you naturally imagine yourself to be who you desire to be. You know that desire points to fulfillment. A desire arises, thank you, I have. You may not even imagine yourself to be, yet you know who you are. Feeling is the secret. You feel fulfilled. You know that you are fulfilled. We can also say fulfillment radiates. And what are you doing? You do nothing. You simply exist. Being is enough. Presence is enough. Existence is enough. So we could say then, presence points to fulfillment, or presence equals fulfillment, or your presence is fulfilling. Just your presence alone is fulfillment. Why? Because fulfillment, God, the self, desire, and intention are one. To suggest separation between these is to suggest that there was a being outside of being. All of these represent pure being completely fulfilled. So in the silence, you know who you are. You feel fulfilled. And so it appears, all these things added onto you, all these things that represent being. Harmonious relationships, wonderful business, and also the flow along the way. As you remain as you are, completely fulfilled, the natural result of that is flow. Being naturally results in flow. Being naturally results in all these things added onto you. As we always say, you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. How do you know? You found it in the form of desire. Mark 11:24. Pray as though you have received it, as in you already are it. You are already that. You naturally imagine yourself to be who you desire to be as applicable, and you may not imagine, because the feeling of fulfillment is undeniable. As you remain as you are, completely fulfilled, you experience yourself being as you are, with environments, with people, with whatever. Because to suggest that it was this versus that, you versus the environment, you versus people, is to suggest that there is separation from being. There's nothing apart from being. There's only being. Although it appears as all these things, there is fundamentally only being. If you think you lack, no shame, no condemnation. You receive within a desire which points to fulfillment, and that I thought of lack of fulfillment dissolves. It is known in the silence that I thought of lack of fulfillment, lack of being, is illusory. There's nothing apart from being. Thus, lack of fulfillment is illusory. Lack of being is illusory. That I thought in the silence is known certainly to be illusory. Who is the thinker of the I thoughts, which is called in the Bible the old man, who thinks in terms of separation, who thinks in terms of lack, and forces and tries to do this or that outwardly to be fulfilled. No shame, no condemnation. You are not the old man because you found that you are completely fulfilled in whatsoever things that you desire. Desire points to fulfillment. Desire is an intention to be. It's interesting to say it that way. Desire is an intention to be. It may sound like there's a person you need to become in order to be, which is illusory. You are already that. The moment the desire arises, it's an intention to be that which you already are. Thus, you are already that. And then there's no desire. You are desireless because you know who you are. You know you are completely fulfilled. You can do nothing to be, as desire simply points to fulfillment. And by that it is meant, you don't need to do this or that to get rid of desire. Desire simply points to fulfillment. The individual knows who they are through desire. So from personal experience, you may know my story. In 2004, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He said, if you have a burning desire, you can transmute that into a definite chief aim, which is imagining yourself to be already that which you desire to be. Imagining yourself to have that which you already desire. Desire is an intention, a pure intention to be who you are. My intention was to not be in $50,000 debt, the result of identification to illusory thinking, which I then realized later on is not me really thinking. I thought I was thinking, yet that was the ignorant I. That is not me, therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Pure consciousness is perfect as it is now, so how could there be lack? I chose to be as I am, completely fulfilled, and it appeared to me in imagination as having a wonderful lifestyle, a lavish, steady, dependable income, consistent with integrity and mutual benefit, having an abundance of resources readily available, as that is reality. Look around and see the abundance of resources already available. Look around and see the abundance of relationships already available. If the person in mind thinks themselves to be separate from the relationships or the resources, they generate suffering. It generates the illusion of not having, separation from being, separation from fulfillment. So he said, set a definite chief aim, which is a simple intention. As mentioned, desire, intention, the self, God, and fulfillment are one. There is no separation. So I came here to experience the fruits of fulfillment. You came here to experience the fruits of fulfillment by releasing identification to the thoughts that belong to the old man, which is not you, and identification to the old man. Identification to the old man is released by knowing who you are, as desire points to you completely fulfilled. So you imagine yourself already being who you desire to be. You imagine yourself having that which you desire. And then some way, somehow, it was interesting how it worked out. All of a sudden, money started showing up in unexpected ways. And then I cleared out the $50,000 debt. And then I set another definite chief aim, which is simply an intention to be that which I already am. So it's interesting. I found it in the form of desire. And then it appears as a bridge of incidents to the manifestation of that which I already am. It just plays out that way. Now, I articulate it way more precisely now, having said over the years many definite chief aims. And you don't have to call it definite chief aim. You can call it intention or knowing that you are already that, whatever you'd like. Desire points to fulfillment. Once you know you are already that, everything appears to be in harmony. The only resistance that appears on the way is that which is a result of not knowing who you are. Not knowing who you are, which you can know who you are by doing nothing in the silence. You know who you are in the silence. You know that you are completely fulfilled. You know that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You know who you are in the silence. And no concept, no label can limit you in the silence. Thus you are infinite being, infinitely fulfilled. You naturally imagine yourself to experience what you imagine to be as fulfillment. And the world appears to be that way. The 5 elements rearrange to be that way. It appears that way. I mean, look around in this world. What have we done through imagination with the 5 elements? Look at the technologies, or whatever else. With the 5 elements, through imagination, we form them into this physical substance. From the invisible substance, we made the physical substance. We gave form through what was formless through imagination. So we have everything. We have the resources, the relationships. Everything appears to be in harmony. As mentioned, it's not this versus that. It's not you versus the 5 elements. The 5 elements against you. That kind of thinking belongs to the old man. The new man, who has put off the former conversation, which we can call the real man, knows that I am in heaven on earth now. I abide as I am in heaven on earth now. And through imagination, I rearrange the 5 elements to appear as material object, etc. Not only do relationships appear to be in perfect harmony, there's no inner versus outer. There's no this versus that. It's this and that. all appearing to be in perfect harmony, to reflect fulfillment. Not only is that true with relationships, that's also true with whatever intention that you set. As the intention represents being, it's pure intention to be as you are. You are that love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, no shame, no condemnation. See, shame and condemnation results in this kind of illusory thinking that you should not be who you desire to be, that you should not have what you desire to have, because if you desire to have what your heart desires, you're a bad person. If you desire to be what your heart desires, you're a bad person. Desire points to fulfillment. How do you know desire points to fulfillment? Remain as you are in the silence, there's only fulfillment. You naturally imagine yourself to be who you desire to be. You naturally imagine yourself to have what you desire. It's not like you're forcing yourself to imagine yourself to be, or forcing yourself to imagine who you desire to be. It's not like you're forcing yourself to accept that desire points to fulfillment. In the silence, you're completely fulfilled. So a desire arises, you may pray. Mark 11:24. It's a simple knowing that you already are, that's what you desire to be. You pray as though you have received it. Naturally, what arises from that is the thoughts, the relatability from the premise of having what you desire, from the premise of being. And so let's discuss what it can appear as for relationships. A person sees someone that they're interested in starting a conversation with. There's no illusory thoughts in mind. There's no thoughts of separation. They know that they are completely fulfilled. Thus, being is completely fulfilled. And since there's no person separate from being, there are no thoughts of separation. They start a conversation, or the other person starts a conversation. They remain as they are, fulfilled. You remain as you are, fulfilled, just as you are in the silence. Yet, one does not need to be sitting down in a meditation to be in silence. You can be as you are in silence, as you are who you are in the silence. I am still, yet body appears to flow. What I say, body language, what I do, etc. happens. Everything happens. God plays all roles perfectly as God does. Spirit animates all perfectly. Every individual abides in the heavenly mansion. If I imagine that you were not abiding in the heavenly mansion, in my Father's house there are many mansions. Why would I do that? That's illusory. It's to suggest that, wait, I abide in my Father's house, which has many mansions, and you don't? Being as I am in heaven, on earth now, I abide as I am. And since there's only being, as mentioned, fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. You abide as you are in the heavenly mansion. I cannot imagine you otherwise. That's illusory thinking. That would suggest that there's another being apart from being. Ultimately, there's only being. So you engage in a conversation. You meet the person, you go on dates, everything appears to flow. Now you're in a relationship with them, everything appears to flow. There was no thoughts of limitation. There was no thoughts of separation. There was no thoughts of lack or limitation, as you know that you are completely fulfilled. The desire emerged to have a wonderful relationship, to be in harmony with another individual, as ultimately there is no other. There's only God. There's only reality. As mentioned, fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. To suggest that there's separation, the individual shames and condemns themselves for having what they desire. If you have a desire, it means you have what you desire. If you have a desire, it means you have what you desire. You have a desire, I have what I desire. Desire points to fulfillment. So you know that you are, you know that you have what you desire. Everything happens naturally, as it always did. The illusory thinker in mind that was generating shame and condemnation, trying to get rid of desire, only to inevitably realize that they are fulfilled, and then spontaneously all these things happen. Anyways, desires are prophecies from God. Desire points to being, as there's only being in perfect harmony. Thus, everyone abides in the heavenly mansions. So, if everybody abides in their heavenly mansion, how could everything appear to be in perfect harmony? Not my concern. It says in the Bible, my ways are past finding out. The individual may think, how does it work? And try to figure it out. You can do nothing. Just remain as you are. Everything flows. You experience it. As you abide as you are completely fulfilled, conversations flow, everything flows. You don't force yourself to do this or that. The best thing to do is to be as you are, and you can do nothing to be as you are already that. You abide as you are in that still I am presence. You know who you are, completely fulfilled. You know that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in the silence. You are that pure awareness that witnesses the power of awareness appearing more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. You simply remain as you are, completely fulfilled. So for the entrepreneur, as we were discussing recently on my other channel where I talk about entrepreneurship, in that video I'll link to in the description, I explore how we were having a conversation with members of Flow-Based Prosperity, my group coaching and mastermind service, about relationships and resources. Let's say the individual desires to have a particular kind of business. Desire means having. Desire, intention, the self, God, fulfillment are one. So we know that now. The questions may arise. How do I find people that fit particular roles in my business? So they don't like to do particular parts of the operation. How do they find these individuals to fill those roles? What about particular resources? God does everything. God plays all roles. So we don't worry about those details. They naturally happen. We remain as we are, completely fulfilled. And naturally what happens is what you say, what you don't say, what you do, what you don't do. There's no this versus that. There's no such thing as confusion in mind. There's no such thing as contradiction in mind. That kind of thinking is the result of identification to the person being the doer of the works. The person is not the doer of the works. I can of myself do nothing. The Father within doeth the work. So what naturally happens in flow is these relationships emerge. The resources emerge. They were always there. They were there all along. Now, as we know that we are completely fulfilled, there is no resistance. But they naturally emerge to be in harmony. How do I know? Well, I built 3 successful businesses. And over the recent years, since I made flow a priority in 2017, which simply means not identifying with the need to control, force, want, need, crave, as flow is the natural result of being. Just like recently we were talking about, I don't know if you've seen the video, but personal magnetism is the result of being. Flow is the result of being. Charisma is the result of being. Divine presence manifested in form, the fragrance of God, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which people may comment and point to and say, your presence is love, your presence is happiness, your presence is peace, your presence is bliss. The fragrance of God naturally happens. The fragrance of being. Fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one and manifest as the fragrance of God. All these things added onto you naturally. So just as love, happiness, peace, bliss is the fragrance of God, knowing that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. So is flow. Flow is the natural result of being. All these things added in flow, the natural result of being. And so why would it be any different when it comes to entrepreneurship? Why would it be any different when it comes to relationships? The only times along my journey, and this was more so prior to 2017, before I made flow a priority, which is essentially make being a priority, which can sound illusory as there's only being. So it could sound like a person needs to do something in order to, it just means simply be. Anytime a desire arises, thank you, I have. And then the flow restrictor transmute into flow enhancer. Because in pure being, which is fundamental reality, perfect as it is now, that pure awareness that I am, witnessing the power of awareness take care of everything for me, taking care of everything for all, as we all abide in our Father's house, which has many mansions. Everything happens naturally. All people appear to play the perfect role. God animates all. So the vendors, the clients, the team members appear naturally in flow. There's no force, there's no trying, there's no wanting, there's no needing, there's no waiting, there's no such thing as these things, as that would imply that there was something apart from being. That would imply that there was a being apart from being. To prove the point, you know who you are, that pure awareness that transcends the appearance of the body, the appearance of the thoughts, the appearance of the emotions, the appearance of the relationships, the appearance of the resources, the appearance of the five elements. You know who you are, that pure awareness. Now you also know, having released identification to all these appearances, that you are unaffected by these appearances. You are completely fulfilled beyond these appearances. You are complete love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, transcendent to these appearances. Or we could say beyond these appearances. As you remain, what permeates the mind, what permeates the body? The feeling of love, the feeling of happiness, the feeling of peace, the feeling of bliss, the feeling of fulfillment. Thus you know that you are complete love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Beyond these appearances, transcendent to these appearances. And then you realize you are in harmony with these appearances. You experience fulfillment with these appearances. You experience love with these appearances. Bliss with, happiness with, peace with, all these things. With body, with mind, with thoughts, with emotions, with people, with environments, with circumstance, with information. So one way of saying it is the person may have been inharmoniously, based on particular thinking in mind, entangled with these things in a way that was generating suffering. And then they realize that they transcend these appearances, not identified with them. They know who they are, and then they reemerge to be in harmony with it. They realize that there's no conflict between inner and outer. There's no this versus that. There's no inward is better than outward and outward is better than inward. They know all to be in perfect harmony. And so what happens then, as it always did, It's just the illusions of separation, the identification, particularly by the old man, was generating all this unnecessary resistance. So in the relationships, as we mentioned, being completely fulfilled, they see a person they would like to start a conversation with, they start a conversation with. They meet them, they go on dates, they end up in a relationship, etc. Everything flows. The same as with business, etc. Now, that happens naturally in flow. There's no illusions of separation there. But prior to that, not knowing who they are, not knowing that they are complete love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and seeing themselves to be in conflict with another person, which is illusory. There's no other person to be in conflict with. There's only being in perfect harmony. Having realized that all is in harmony, that reality is perfect as it is now, and there is infinite harmony points where we relate harmoniously, the conversations naturally flow. You had a desire that pointed you to the fact that you are fulfilled. You know that you are fulfilled. You imagine yourself to be who you desire to be. You imagine yourself to have what you desire, from which the thoughts, whatsoever things are true, lovely, good rapport, think upon these things. You naturally think upon these things, Philippians 4:8. You emotionally relate harmoniously. Behaviors flow, body language flows, naturally in harmony. That's what I mean by fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. So rather than shaming and condemning themselves for having what they desire, which is illusory, they acknowledge that they have what they desire. You have a desire, I have what I desire. Desire points to fulfillment. God plays all roles perfectly. In my Father's house, there are many mansions, and all roles are played in perfect harmony. As we acknowledge that there's only being, we know there's only being in the silence. There's only fulfillment, complete being in the silence, and desire simply pointed to your fulfillment, pointed to the fact that you are fulfilled. So you remain as you are, and as mentioned, prior to making flow a priority, I was identified with particular thoughts when they appeared. At times I would say, I am fulfilled, and I am not fulfilled, and then I am fulfilled, and I am not fulfilled. Illusory. I am fulfilled. Because the person in mind trying to control things, the old man, thinks that the old man is the doer of the works. The person in mind is not the doer of the works. In my Father's house, there are many mansions, all taken care of. All these individuals abide. Again, this may not make sense to the person in mind. It may be confusing to the person in mind. That's why we dissolve that illusory thinker in mind. By doing nothing to dissolve the illusory thinker in mind, which simply means do not identify. Release identification. We know clearly it's illusory. How do you know it's illusory? Well, you know that you transcend the appearances. You know that you are completely fulfilled. Thus, you are in complete harmony with this world. There is no inner versus outer. There's only being. Any thoughts then that appear in mind to suggest otherwise are illusory. They're not real. Now that you know that you are all that you desire to be, now that you know that you are completely fulfilled in every way, what thoughts can suggest otherwise? That if identified with, generate illusions of separation between the inner and outer, inner versus outer, this versus that, this person versus that person, me versus you, us versus them. Illusory thinking. We know clearly now that that's illusory thinking. So all I did is I stopped identifying with those thoughts. And those thoughts appeared to disappear. And the corresponding appearances that was based on identification to those thoughts also disappeared. It's amazing how these illusory thoughts can distort reality, which is already perfect as it is now. So you do nothing to be as you are, because you are already that. You are already that. What do you need to do in order to be who you already are? You inevitably know that you are fulfilled. You inevitably realize that you are fulfilled. Go into the silence, you know certainly in the silence, that fulfillment, God, the self, desire, intention are one. And it was illusory thinking that was shaming and condemning and generating the suffering, which then, the person in mind shames and condemns themselves for having what they desire. They shame and condemn other people for having what they desire. And that just creates unnecessary confusion and complexity. Desire points to fulfillment. Mark 11:24. Pray as though you have received it. As in acknowledge, know that you have received it, and it will be yours. And then everything appears to be in harmony with you, as you are in harmony with all. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, fulfillment, God, the self, desire, and intention are one, as there's only God, playing all roles in perfect harmony. Thus, there's only complete fulfillment appearing more so with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive, as fulfillment appearances represent reality perfect as it is now, as it was in the beginning and ever shall be. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.